Testing 1 2 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 1 2. All right. I'm here. I'm standing here. I've been standing here just typing. Y'all can probably hear me typing. And shit, my shit. I was thinking, thoughts, speak, hitting astronomical levels. I swear. Okay, well, Zero, put whatever you want to in chat. I'll look at it. If y'all put a link in chat for me to play, just say, hey, play this. If it's just for me to look at later, please tell me to look at later. But y'all never know what the hell I'm going to get a strike on anyway, so. So I don't really care. Anyway. I'll play anything anymore. I don't really give a shit. I don't give a hot damn anymore. But for all I know, the internet's going to be gone tomorrow. Gone. For all I know, tomorrow the internet's going to be fucking gone. So, like, I give a fuck about a channel that they're going to dick around with however they want to anyway. These people are insane. Like, I used to care about my channel. I swear I did, man. I cared about, you know, just having a nice clean channel that, and yes, I am wearing a black t-shirt with white writing on it. I feel like I don't feel myself. So if I don't look myself, all right, Zero, I'll go back and look at it. The reason why the reason why I think 9/11 was planned by AI, or just, you know, you can call it AI, but even when I was a kid, we had computers that were running simulated war games globally that were strategically going through the motions in a ghost world or a AI world or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't doing it for real, but it could have done it for real, and it still could do it, like any sort of apocalyptic kind of nuclear shitstorm. You know, all they got to do is turn the keys, and then the system takes over from there, and it figures out what to shoot, when to shoot it, and how to shoot it. Okay? Now, so 9/11, if you understand 9/11 and all the facets that there are to possibly understand now with the information that has been gathered, not given, but gathered and picked for and hunted for, just little clues here, little clues there, everything about it, the whole 9 yards, we've had to dig like worms out of a tree. And then you back up and you look at it, and you know, that's one thing I like to do, is I like to back up and look at timelines. It's very important to me to back up from any situation and just look at the whole timeline of anything. And if you look at 9/11, you have to understand that an event that only took a matter of hours, if humans were to have planned that, think of the compartmentalization that you would have to have. You'd have to have people, remember how they shut down all air traffic, they shut down all air traffic control, they shut down all radar, they shut down everything. Everything. Well, we were doing a drill. That reminds me, the American people are actually running a drill. Just wanted to let law enforcement know, in case there's anybody out there listening, that the American people will be running a drill, only a drill, in the next couple of months. We're not sure when, but the American people are going to be running a drill where the scenario is that a crazy, over-the-top, corrupt government is overtaking militia positions. But it's just a drill. understand. So don't get excited. Now, 9/11, if you look at the planning that had to have been done to have the people at the certain places at the certain times, nobody, if you understand how the military works and all that, you know, or even have any inkling of how the military works, everything, number one, is compartmentalized. Okay? But in order to have planned 9/11, everything from the gold to the reconstruction to the planning of explosives, the planes, the terrorists, the passports, the records, the other buildings, just every goddamn thing that went into it. And I've always thought it had to have been planned by a computer, because you couldn't have kept that many fucking people quiet. You would have had to kill them all. All your compartmentalized. Now you'd say, well, they killed their people on the airplanes. Well, yeah, they probably did at gunpoint at a ditch or something, but or they flew them into. Who the fucking knows? I don't know. People didn't plan that shit. No way people planned 9/11. No fucking way. No fucking way. You'd have to show me a shred of proof. I can show you a shred of everything else in that conspiracy. I can't show you who or how or where. Now you could say, well, Jeff, I mean, did you ever read the book that the motherfuckers wrote that were all a part of that? Yes, I did. Plan for a New American Century. Yes, I did. And I know that the CIA has had plans for doing that shit. Yeah, I remember. I saw it all. Okay? Yeah, I get it. But the scale that 9/11 consumed, it was not only to bring down the towers, but it was to start a never-ending fucking war. And they already had that shit lined up. The weapons of mass destruction, it's always these outrageous fucking things that nobody ever goes back and looks up and says, hey, well, you said it was a guy with a mustache, and clearly it's an old woman. Are we going to go back and you going to where did you? I don't understand. You know, the little things that they fuck up, like the underwear bomber, the panty bomber, right? That's what humans plan. Pulse nightclub, that's what humans plan. Boston Marathon? No. AI. With human. Now, if you wanted to say, well, Jeff, who do you think it is? Who do you think is responsible for 9/11? Yes, it was people that are in the government, were in the government, still are in the government. But I think what more than anything, what we have out there is we have, I think, a couple of trillionaires running around out there. Maybe we know them and maybe we don't. That have accumulated lots of power and connections and control over a lot of people's lives. And you know, you can't convince me that they can hire all them chemtrail pilots. I think all the fucking planes, the chemtrail planes, are all fucking remote control like now. I really do. And number two, I had an overlay where I got a circle, and I'll put it up later on the air traffic control. I need everybody to do this in your area. When they're chemtrailing the fuck out of you, zoom into flight radar 24, okay? And you'll see all the plane traffic, and then find your spot of sky that's right over your house and zoom in on that. And then watch the fucking planes. And watch now, the planes that are chemtrailing you ain't even showing up on fucking radar. All day yesterday, I don't see a fucking thing on the radar, but I goddamn see this planes fucking spraying the shit out of the sky yesterday. I'm shaking today. I think I got sprayed too much yesterday. So you think of all the design planning that went into 9/11. Yeah, just the explosives alone. If it would have been compartmentalized. You know, just planning the damn thing, much less getting all the explosives into place and all that stuff. I mean, just the planning alone would have taken, especially from these fucking dumbasses that we got fucking shit up everywhere. If you're telling me these are the fucking people that are supposedly this wizards of smart that planned fucking 9/11, like Bush and Cheney and fucking Rumsfeld and fucking, yeah, they're smart. Yeah, I seen Rumsfeld back during the Vietnam War. Yeah, I saw it all. Yeah, Rumsfeld, smart guy. Yeah, I get it. But think of how much goddamn planning went in just to orchestrate it and set it all off. Much less that it was just a fucking drill. Drill is just a keyword they use to fucking, I guess, tell all their people, look out, you know, fucking drill. Anyway. Shooting or radar either. Yeah. Well, helicopter can get below radar if it's, you know, at the same height as a building, like they were saying that, you know, the videos that they were showing a helicopter, it wouldn't have shown up on radar in that area. Not if there was a building in the way or whatever. Anyway. So if like a helicopter was floating in front of the Mandalay Bay and there was a radar unit here like spinning around, it's going to see that fucking building. It's not necessarily going to see the radar. I mean the helicopter. If it never mind. The helicopter. May I bring your attention to
der gesichtet wissenschaftliche Expertise.
Just a little while back, a month ago, the Olympic International Olympic Committee or whatever it is, they found that through testimony alone, not through any piss test results, that the Russians had been doping their athletes. And these are the Russian athletes finding out that they will not be allowed to participate in the upcoming Olympics. Look how sad they look. And look at this pompous bureaucrat sitting over there looking like Dr. Phil's brother. Well, what it is, see, is what we have here is we have some children that are out of control, and we need to get them back into order. Because if we don't, there's going to be problems in the Olympics. And look at these Russians kids sitting over there going, man, fuck these people. None of us got popped on a piss test. They're going on one guy's testimony who is the assistant to the fucking doctor that was supposedly fucking pumping us full of drugs. Okay? That's what you're looking at. And you're looking at the Russian kids who trained all their fucking lives, man. They've been, you know, they from Russia, right? They was beat with sticks to get to performing right? They was trained like monkeys, you'd think, right? Because they're the Russians, right? You know, they got the women with the fucking one eyebrows and stuff, and not anymore. No, not anymore. And it was sad because it was such a liberal thing, such a damn liberal thing for the Olympic committee thing at the USA request. See, this is all shit that was started by the USA. USA starts all this shit about them doping because they can't compete with them because they're losing to them. So then they start accusing them of doping. Poor kids.
Russia has been banned from the
ones who truly wanted to participate could participate.
Will be allowed to compete.
The ones that did want to participate, they could participate under a neutral flag. They couldn't win a medal for their country, so to speak. So even though they were being penalized for something that they weren't necessarily guilty of doing at all, except via opinion of a small number of people. You think about all the people that put into the Olympics, all the athletes, and how come none of these people that are on these Olympic committees are, I don't know, ex-athletes? How come they're always a bunch of fucking fat, overweight, fucking don't even look like they could do a push-up bureaucrats running the Olympics? The Olympics is all about being fit and trim, not some fat lard ass that looks like you can't stay away from a buffet. It's insane, right? I know what you're thinking, Jeff. Would you move on? Yes, I'm moving on. But the main point is the Russians were for the fucking, they have been persecuted for this doping, Russian doping. Yeah, look, their runners run like cheetahs because they're like 70 miles an hour or something. They got to be doping. And, you know, when they were always just kind of average athletes pretty much. I mean, they were strong competitors, but they when they kind of went a little westernized over there, they weren't competing it, so there was no need for them to be doping. Anyway, and what are they calling doping, right? Well, they weren't taking that. No, they didn't test positives for steroids or fucking extra vitamin B or C or D. I don't know, but I don't know. It's probably, you know, hey, yeah, we don't know what you took, but you better tell us something. If you talk now, everything will be better. You know, I mean, it's like the same bullshit over and over and over. And you would have thought, well, damn, you know, it sucks to be Russian gymnast. Sucks to be a Russian gymnast, I'm telling you, man. Russian gymnasts just get the shit, right? They don't get no damn respect. The guys that push like stones around on ice get way more like respect than the Russian gymnasts and stuff, right? You remember that face. Who does she look like? She looks like a movie star. What's her name? I don't remember. I want to say Cindy Crawford, but that's not the name. It's the girl that was in the space movie, and she's... what's this girl look like? Who does she look like? I don't remember who she is. That's her. This is her.
Done, I'm thinking she is Olympic champion without any question.
Now, this girl she was on the dream team. Like, there was an Olympic gymnastics dream team. It wasn't just a bunch of black dudes on a basketball court. They had another dream team. It was this girl and another 5 or 6. Them other girls right there. You see them. Them girls. They're the dream team. They all won gold medals. They mopped the floor with everybody. They just mopped the floor with everybody. It's amazing.
The US Olympic Committee and the country's gymnastics governing body are being accused of helping cover up years of sex abuse and child molestation. In a lawsuit filed by champion gymnast Michaela Moroni, she alleges to have been abused by a US team doctor for years and then paid to keep silent. She also names other sports institutions for preventing her from publicly coming forward. With more details, here's Samira Khan.
Michaela Maroney, America's Olympic darling, one of the world's most famous gymnasts, U.S. household name, and victim of childhood sex abuse that apparently took place over years. And when she wanted to speak out, both USA Gymnastics plus the U.S. Olympic Committee made her keep quiet. Maroney claims she was paid hush money and is now suing them for silencing her.
She hired a lawyer and asked for a settlement conference or a mediation to get justice. What she didn't ask for was a draconian confidentiality agreement that prevented her from telling even her brother and sister about this. And then, I think even worse, it said that you can't ever say anything bad about USA Gymnastics ever for your whole life.
She's come forward with a horrific story of abuse by Team USA's former doctor, Larry Nassar.
It started when I was 13 years old, and it didn't end until I left sport. It seemed whenever and wherever this man could find the chance, I was treated. The scariest night of my life happened when I was 15 years old. I had flown all day and night with the team to get to Tokyo. He'd given me a sleeping pill for the flight, and the next thing I know, I was all alone with him in his hotel room getting a treatment. I thought I was going to die that night.
But one would naturally have expected USA Gymnastics to support its crown jewel, but the organization claims that she herself chose to settle this all quietly.
In 2016, Michaela's attorney at the time, Gloria Allred, approached USA Gymnastics, requesting that the organization participate in a confidential mediation.
Gloria
Allred! In a
Allred.
settlement agreement that included a mutual non-disclosure clause and a mutual non-disparagement clause.
Yet Maroney's case is just the start. Over 150 women have now accused the same doctor of sexual abuse.
I don't want to be in a courtroom telling about how a man, penetrated me in front of my mother when I was 11.
The fact that he just thinks, oh, I pleaded guilty and now you guys can start healing is ridiculous to me. I don't think he truly understands how many people are hurting and how bad people are hurting over this.
Now, Dr. Nassar admits to exploiting his position to abuse his patients, and he was recently convicted and sentenced to 60 years in jail. But his victims believe justice has still not been served. And it's not just Nassar who they insist must be punished, but the sports officials who failed to protect child athletes.
The Olympics is something that brings people hope and joy. Sure, from the outside looking in, it's an amazing story. I did it. I got there, but not without a price.
Well, we discussed Maroney's claims there with the former gymnast Rachel Den Hollander. She was actually the first to publicly accuse former US team doctor Larry Nassar of sexual assault and isn't surprised either about the claims of a big cover-up.
I think there's plenty of evidence that there was a cover-up, not just because of the way USAG has handled Larry Nassar's case, but again, because this is their long-standing policy. They have been covering up sexual abuse in the organization literally for decades. Some of the most prominent coaches in USAG who have trained Olympians, who have worked alongside Bella and Marta Caroli, those coaches have been found guilty of sexual abuse too. So when you have an organization that has a decades-long policy of silencing victims by literally shoving reports in a file cabinet, and then they can defend those actions by saying they want to avoid a witch hunt, it shouldn't come as any surprise to us that they're treating their elite athletes the same way they're treating the youngest gymnasts in their member gyms. So I think we already know that USAG has a long-standing policy of covering up sexual predators. Michaela said that she had signed her agreement in 2016, but just a few months ago in August, the OC Register, which is a local California newspaper, did publish that they had been able to confirm that another case had been settled in 2015 with another victim of Larry Nassar, an elite gymnast. So yes, I think it's likely that there are others that have been silenced. I think there needs to be an investigation into whether illegal activities occurred. There are very legitimate questions about whether or not this non-disclosure agreement was even legal under California law, because it did involve felony sex offense crimes. And I think there needs to be a complete board change from the top.
She is just out of this world. She has unbelievable technique, and because of that, she is able to just jump off the vaulting table maybe 2.5 feet higher than just about anybody in the competition.
Taylor suffered a concussion at the Nationals in late June, came back to the trials. This week she's had the most famous big toe in gymnastics.
Well, let's go over this. Jordan Weber, Gabby Douglas, Michaela Maroney, Kyla Ross, and Allie Rousman, I think, have all. The latest one was not Michaela. The latest one was actually Allie Rousman came forward. Gabby Douglas came forward a while back. All these girls got molested by the doctor. He got over 150 of them. Over 150 of them. But these girls all trained together for a long time. With him parading around as their doctor, giving them treatments. This, right, not that, this, damn it. If I can make that bigger. Can y'all see my mouse right there? No, the very middle picture, the two little girls, that's the one that you were talking about on the right. That's how old she was. She was 13 in that picture when the doctor started molesting her. There's the doctor right there, feeling of her. Now, you'd think that that picture is just reversed to the right, but it's not. If you look at the lady's pants on the left, black pants, and then if you look at the picture on the right, she's still on the left. So he moved around. He's feeling of her all over. What happened at the same time? Who's some other people that these girls are meeting? That's what I was wanting to know. Who are the other people that these girls were having to spend their fucking time with? How about him? He spent time with all of them. All of them. Now, don't tell me it was just a big secret between them and the coach. Because the committee hides it all. They just pay him off to go away. Elite athletes who've trained all their lives to be wasted on sex predation. Well, let's just say that they weren't athletes. Let's say that they were aspiring physicists who had been training and going to school to be a physicist. And all of a sudden, their school nurse molests them for years. So bad, in fact, that they got to come forward about it. All of them. Because it was that bad. They all came forward. They all got paid off. As they came forward, they got paid off. But it was evidently so bad that it wasn't just like, maybe I'm the only one. It's like, no, man, he had his finger in everybody's ass. Even the boys, right? To be sure he was, right? So, what if they were physicists, aspiring physicists? And then when they came forward, the school said, what? No, we're not going to fire the school nurse. Of course, that's silly, you fucking idiot child. You're going to have to go study something else. You can't be a physicist anymore. You can't have anything to do with academia. You can't have... Can you not transpose this into your head as to any other thing? Because I think that what happens even now with most people is they... For some reason, it's like because they're an athlete or something like that. I don't know, that it's like not that these kids train harder than your kids will ever train to do anything. They freaking spend their whole lives in the gym from the time they're little tiny kids, aspiring to be the best in the world at what they do. Only to get turned around, get molested by some fucking Mr. Grabby Hands that fucking has to molest them all the time. And then when they do decide they want to come forward, fucking they say, well, you can't be in the Olympics anymore. You're going to have to go take this hush money and go. Shh, 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 shh. But what if they were aspiring physicists? What if they were aspiring doctors? What if they were aspiring anything other than an athlete? Can you not look past athlete? So who else did they spend time with? And again, don't tell me that this isn't a big club of fucking pedophiles. We all know it's a big fucking club of pedophiles. We get it. We understand that. So don't tell me they don't share the goods with each other. Hey, what you doing this weekend? Oh man, me and Jeff Epstein, we heading down to the island. Supposedly, they got a whole gymnastics team waiting for us down there, bitches. Don't tell me that shit doesn't happen. And don't kid yourself if you don't think that it does. Don't kid yourself. Who else were they spending time? Mr. Grabby Hands there. There's the doctor right there. There's the doctor right there. There's the doctor right there. There's him with another little girl. He likes them young. He picks them up young. 150 of them. 150 of them. Remember what I said about Jeff Epstein? That's Prince Harry. Prince Harry was traveling around with this Olympic team on Jeffrey Epstein's plane and got in trouble for it. I found one story about it. Also, Bill Clinton was in the mix. Where's his picture at? Bill Clinton was with them too. But that's the middle picture. That's when he got started with these girls. I mean, look, they just came out of diapers not too long ago, it seems like, right? Oh, there's Bill Clinton with them right there. And don't tell me they don't fucking pass these fucking party favors around amongst each other. If they were cannibals, there'd be nothing left of them. They'd all be gone, eaten, cooked. No, they just fucking totally ruin their lives. They tell them, if you want to get to where you're at, bend over. It's time for a treatment. A treatment is what he called it with all of them. A treatment. A treatment. I meant to say a treat for that sicko that called himself a doctor. Why do we got to put up with this? I don't know either. Why is my camera not on? I don't know either. Why is that text up there saying starting at 9:30 still? I don't know either. Yeah, I know, it doesn't do any damn good. Doesn't seem to do any good. I mean, I guess I'm lucky. You know, I could have been an aspiring fucking gymnast who had spent all my free time in the damn gym working hard, working my ass off, trying to fucking make the Olympic team and win the gold medal and gold medal and gold medal and gold medal. And gotta put up with that shit? What do you think they got the gold medal for? Oh, did you hear about this?
The Israeli Prime Minister has ordered the country's withdrawal from the UN's Culture and Heritage Organisation, UNESCO. It follows a similar move announced by the United States in October over a perceived bias against Israel. Here's how that country's envoy to the agency explained the decision.
UNESCO has broken records of hypocrisy, incitement and lies against Israel and the Jewish people, while polluting its noble core principles with politicization and diplomatic terrorism that sometimes bordered on anti-Semitism.
Well, with more now on Israel's move, here's Caleb Moppin.
Comes on the heels of quite a bit of criticism from the United States and Israel of UNESCO's activities. Now, UNESCO is the UN's cultural agency. Now, the Israeli Foreign Ministry spokesperson specifically cited what he called attempts to disconnect the history of Jewish history from the land of Israel. UNESCO has angered Israel over the past year. They passed resolutions in which they said that Israel has no right to Jerusalem. They said that the Temple Mount and the Old City are both Muslim holy sites. Now, as far back as 2011, UNESCO actually granted Palestine full membership in its organization. Now, this is Danny Danon, the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. This is him touching on the recent decision.
No UNESCO declaration, no empty speeches, no General Assembly resolution will ever drive us from Jerusalem.
Recently, we saw that the USA had withdrawn from UNESCO. That happened in October. And when the United States pulled out of UNESCO, they specifically cited what they called an anti-Israel bias. Now, when that happened, Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, called it a courageous and moral decision and praised the United States for doing that. UNESCO, it stands for the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. It has a number of tasks. It fights violent extremism around the world. It promotes female education. It promotes media freedom. It also protects certain cultural sites around the world. Now, what is in question at the moment is what will happen to certain cultural sites now that both the United States and Israel are no longer participants in this very important international body.
That was Caleb Moppin. Well, UNESCO does list World Heritage Sites across Israel, comprising of a dozen places representing 3,000 years of history. Israeli newspaper columnist Amir Oren believes UNESCO is also a platform for diplomatic action and that Israel may eventually reverse its decision.
Every UN agency is a battlefield in the foreign policy and diplomacy arena. And UNESCO is no different than the Human Rights Council and others. But whether or not Israel should withdraw from it is another matter altogether, because just withdrawing, just leaving the field to others is not acceptable to many Israelis. We have been through such cycles of UN bashing. Eventually, Israel and presumably the United States too would come back having symbolized their displeasure. It is just a gesture. One shouldn't read too much into it.
Now, just in case you're wondering why they pulled out of UNESCO, it's because of all the World Heritage Sites that they protect. It is directly tied to this right here. This is what happens when you kill one Palestinian who's part of a protest. Just one. The biggest mistake we've made in the Middle East so far is Trump moving the... I mean, you would think of all the crap to get shit started in the Middle East, of all the crap that we have fucking done, it's my opinion that the worst move we've made thus far is this fucking embassy bullshit. They get rid of UNESCO, which is kind of, they kind of watch over all the old stuff. The World Heritage Sites is what they call them, but they're just like old temples. I mean, all over the Middle East, from Syria, Iraq. I mean, whatever they can try to help and preserve, they do. And yeah, they probably hide shit too. Not saying they don't. But they definitely don't go in and blow shit up. And that's what we did with ISIS. We went around to all the old places in Syria and blew them up. They were already blown up once before because they were all scattered all over the place. But and they try to destroy stuff all the time. But UNESCO was like the NGO that was only powerful as long as the U.S. was a part of it. Kind of like the UN. It's only got power as long as the U.S. is in it. And see, all this control is being taken all at one time in Jerusalem right now. Moving out of UNESCO, moving the embassy into Jerusalem to kill up and whip up a bunch of Palestinians so they can drop bombs on them and kill them. And that's what they've already been doing. They're going to continue, and they're going to step up their program now. Now they're stealing land in Jerusalem. Not stealing it as in like, yeah, they're taking it too, but let's just say you live in Jerusalem and you're a Palestinian. The law there says that you cannot sell your land to a Jew. That's the law. Now you can think, well, that's a horrible law. I don't support that law at all. Well, that's fine. Don't go live there if you're a fucking Jew. Just saying, the law is not against the Jews, but against the Palestinian, against themselves. The law is, it's big trouble if you sell your fucking property to a Jew. You can't do it. So they'll put their shit up for sale, and then somebody will come over and say, hey, how much you want for the property? They'll say, I want X amount of whatever for the property. And they say, well, how would you like to live in Dubai? In a really nice apartment on the water for the rest of your life. And the Palestinian that doesn't even have running water in their house says, yeah, that sounds fucking nice, and good medical care too. All the food I can eat for the rest of my life. Absolutely. And then the people that are buying, they're not actually a Jewish org. They're like a private company. They set up as like relocation companies. And then they wait a little while, and then they'll put a Jewish family in it. And every time that happens, it's a big problem. And every time they do it, they put up a fucking flagpole with the fucking Star of David on it. And it's like they're trying to turn Jerusalem into Israel. They're just taking more fucking land. I mean, just like you can go down to the Golan Heights now, see fucking Star of David flags fucking all over the damn place. And you're just going, wait a minute. When did Syria give you this shit here? Oh, no. We just took it. U.S. said we could. You look at the map from Israel from the time that the land was granted to them to now. If you think that's good, if you think that's correct, or if you even think that's legal in whatever land you live in, I just hope that you don't have to have the same thing done to you for you to understand it and you to kind of turn it around in your head. I don't care what your religion is. There ain't no old maps that say Israel there. You say, well, there ain't a whole lot of maps that say Palestine there. Right. So don't. If it's fucking everybody's holy land, it's everybody's holy land. Nobody's religion has. Well, yes, Dad, it's 1,500 years before. Yeah, whatever. I got shit that dates your fucking story fucking 6,000 and 10,000 years ago, bitches. And it says your shit's all fucked up and wrong. Quit doing it like that. We know what happened. If the stories are true about World War II and Hitler, then the Jews owe the Palestinians all the land that they want. The Jews owe the Palestinians Jerusalem. If the Jews are all about what the Torah says that they're all about, then they would freely give Jerusalem to the Palestinians and say, thank you for our bloodlines that we don't allow any DNA testing on. Sylvia posted a good one today. If y'all want to watch it, y'all can watch it with me. I watched about 15 minutes of it, but I'd like to watch the rest if y'all don't mind. If you don't mind, thanks. Let's do this.
I have traveled across the length and breadth of India, and I've not seen one person who's a beggar, who is a thief. Such wealth I have seen in this country, such high moral values, people of such caliber, that I do not think we would ever conquer this country, unless we break the very backbone of this nation, which is her spiritual and cultural heritage. And therefore, I propose that we replace her old and ancient education system, her culture. For if the Indians think that all that is foreign and English is good and greater than their own, they will lose their self-esteem, their native culture, and they will become what we want them, a truly dominated nation.
Although the devious plan of this so-called noble, so-called lord from England was implemented successfully, still, India remains the closest life example of what kind of things would the survivors teach the primitive people they encounter. Although the Vedic literature, the Vedic scriptures, also underwent editions during which probably a lot of the meaning was lost, as usual they were disguised as language reforms. We know that song from previous episodes. But yet they remain the closest that we have to the original teachings of the survivors as they are, along with the scriptures, the holy books of the Zoroastrians. A portion of the Vedas, the Vedic sacred books, the old scriptures of India, does deal with history, and it goes back all the way to the time when our universe was created by a single living being called Brahma. Everything we see around is just a display of his creativity. Everything without exception, the earth, billions of others like it, and even our very self, our souls, are also expansion of his own being, because he is an aspect of the Supreme Lord, the all-pervading consciousness. And then as far as the history of the earth, a really extreme antiquity is mentioned when still powerful dragons, very wise dragons of goodness, inhabited Bhumi. That's how they call the earth. One of the names also Prithvi, Bhumi Devi, Prithvi Devi. These wise dragons, which were far superior than us, are not to be confused with the reptilian races, which are currently involved very actively in influencing our society. In the Vedas and also in some old sacred books from the state of Tamil Nadu, we have references to a lost ancient continent called Kumarikandam. The location of the continent and to some extent the story which is told about it is confirmed by the set material channeled by Jane Roberts, which sadly remains, at least for me, the only absolutely most reliable source for extremely ancient history. And as far as the relatively recent history of Bhumi Devi, the Vedas clearly speak about times, very recent times, when righteous rulers spread their influence all over the world, which is exactly what we find in terms of artifacts and cultural heritage. I've been showing that for many episodes already. We find the traces of a single worldwide civilization. And most importantly, that social structure was meant to serve as a direct bridge between the benevolent, higher, advanced living beings in the universe and the human races. We were repeatedly brainwashed in school that all the cultures were primitive and limited to their lands or maximum the continent, because of this ongoing endeavor to erase any trace of the message of the benevolent forefathers and our creators, who gave us the instructions of Sanatana Dharma, the teachings of how to live in happiness and prosperity, and at the same time get on well with our education as learning souls, the purpose for which we were born. So let me show you a few curious things left from the times when the Hindus were still following the Sanatana Dharma. The so-called musical pillars at Hampi, India, are one of the examples for designing certain interior architectural elements as musical instruments. Each pillar plays a given musical note and you can play music on them. pillars are missing. They have been destroyed by the British. They thought, oh, let's see how they made it. Some of the pillars must be hollow, that's why the stone appears to have different density or something like that. So they even damaged the temple just to find out that the columns are not hollow. They're just made using a technique we simply don't understand. But we have very good knowledge of how to destroy everything, dissect it. And then we show great creativity in finding the stupidest explanations for what we have done. For example, with the money that we pay every day as taxes, even when you go to the shop you pay 20% tax just because you want to buy some food. All that goes to various laboratories where animals and lots of people are tortured. But we close our eyes and say, oh, this is done in the name of discovering new medicines so that the humanity doesn't suffer. If really better healthcare was the actual intention, Ayurvedic traditional Hindu medicine would be implemented in all hospitals around the world, along with the very advanced Tibetan traditional medicines and along with countless other natural cures that we still haven't forgotten. Countless scientific publications show that these medicines, even in their nowadays downgraded version, are far more efficient than the poisons that we are being administered by the modern pharmacies. Next to the musical pillars at Hampi hung chains made of stone. The British destroyed that as well. They were not sure how was it made exactly, so the reaction is destroy. Fortunately, we have some examples which survived in other temples. Now please look at the top part of the temple at Hampi. Please note how the building technique and style is absolutely identical to that of the temples I showed you in the couple of previous episodes, those from Cambodia, Myanmar, Indonesia, Thailand, China, and here in Vietnam as well, and all the way to Teotihuacan in Mexico. Again, some people came and taught the locals how to make very strong cement and dress stone with cement. So the history as it is given in the Hindu Vedas and tells us about wise people who were on educational missions all around the world is very well confirmed by the artifacts and whatever little historic records have escaped destruction and meaning-twisting editions. For example, the quote you heard in the very beginning of this video sounds practically identical to the description of the societies, the local communities of South America, which were as prosperous and advanced as India when the same colonial forces arrived with the intent to trash anything godly and nice. In Egypt, we also have vague remains of oral history being transmitted from generation to generation, and they also speak of a worldwide civilization to which the advanced, glorious Egypt belonged. The Ellora caves in India, the sheer scale of everything, the sheer size, strips of credibility all official explanations of how all this was made. Ellora is just one of the many such sites in India. I won't even discuss making all this manually, the simple way as we are told. Forget about making it, we can't even destroy it manually. Yes, foreign invaders mobilized divisions and sent them to destroy this temple, but the stone is so hard that they could only inflict minor damages in a long, long time. Eventually the destroyers just gave up. They reported Mission Impossible. The stone is too hard. There is an entire network of intricate tunnels below the Ellora caves. Very little is known about them, for the simple reason that they are too small for a human to go in. The devices can tell us very little, only confirming that the tunnels continue very deep inside the bedrock. I wonder what the penguins would come up as an explanation for this. Maybe like the tunnels in Central Asia, they told us small children made them. Oh, must have been the same situation here. I don't see any problems with 2-3 months newborn babies. They certainly, maybe they can fit their head inside the tunnels. Oh, so everything is confirmed. It means humans can make them. So the topic about constructing this type of temples in India came up during a past life regression conducted by Anton Aksinov, the person thanks to whom we have discovered this amazing information that the stone was grown like mushrooms, like plants in antiquity. And he is the only person that I am aware of who systematically and responsibly uses trance states as a tool to recover history. So here the question put in front of the person who was in trance was, did the Hindus as we know them today build these temples? The answer was, of course not. The actual builders as a human type disappeared not so long ago, some 250-300 years ago. And later on in this regression session, he saw how there were far bigger structures than what we can see now, but everything was sealed, so to say, archived, because there were very special places of power which had to be hidden from the small stupid people, the race which was about to come. That means me and you. Because the small people wouldn't know how to utilize these places of power. For example, some people would come to such holy places preloaded with ideas for aggression, for example. And so the most special places of power were archived with layers of stone manifested on the top or maybe grown to protect us, amongst other reasons which are not necessarily less important, from our own destructive thoughts, which would materialize much faster if we were able to get in contact with those special places and the crystals kept in them. The builders of these majestic caves were a type of people taller than us. They are not only to be seen depicted again and again, they are also in the oral history, the traditional history, which some people in India still have not forgotten. Of course, now we live in modern times, and Indians, as most people, foolishly imagine that they live in a sovereign country. So they noticed that the history which the British forced on them is fraudulent, and there are some attempts to introduce changes, but I assure you that those changes would be more or less meaningless, because India, as all other countries, is just a province of the empire of evil. It is still relatively safe to find out the truth and keep it for yourself as long as you shut up and stay at home, but as far as organized attempts to enlighten people on a larger scale, until we live in the current paradigm, that will be quickly taken care of. If not some international organization, then the international banks of the hyenas will do the job.
This is a very interesting finding at the quarry at Mahabalipuram. It illustrates one of the techniques used to quarry rock. They would make a very deep hole in the stone, in the boulder. Then they would split the boulder. Giant cuttings were made in this way. It looks pretty simple until you actually have to do it. Really, we can't even do it with our modern machines. We do employ a similar method, but we're not there yet. We need many, many such cuttings to split a single boulder. We don't yet know the single hole technique. This is almost 200 years old. Also many cuttings. But at Mahabalipuram, they could do it with one only. And even that one single cutting, how did they make it in the very hard stone with primitive instruments?
The columns of certain temples in the state of Karnataka have become pretty popular lately. Finally, we found something in these magnificent old temples which is simple enough for us to comprehend, something that our simplistically tuned intellect can relate to. All the other stuff with the endless intricate carvings and all of they have meanings, this is just too overwhelming for the simplistic mindset of the modern man. So another reason for which these columns are so famous is that they have been made using lathe machine, or at least that's how they look like. Constructing a lathe machine that could have handled columns of this size is work for people who know quite a bit about engineering. But I find the fineness of the artwork much more impressive than the lathe machines. Just look at this, an entire complex artwork, very difficult to make, and for what? For just a couple of centimeters of minor border. Here they shaped every single bead from his decoration. Just look at this necklace. There is a 1 or 2 millimeters cut between the body of the lady and the necklace. Why? Or what about these tiny faces? They're completely hollow inside. One could insert a twig not only between the 2 ears, but also mouth to ears, and so on. Why? And how? Did they chisel it out with needle? And again, such a tiny small holes, somewhere at a minor border for decoration. Again, why? And as usual, as we noticed also at other places, the older the temple, the more advanced, at least for our understanding, technology would have been required to build it. Or who knows? Maybe we're even asking the wrong questions. Maybe they didn't even need any technology at all. Sometimes in the past life regressions that I've been referring to, there are mentions that even a couple of 100 years ago, still races of people existed which could still manifest things just with their thoughts, materialize them from the ether plane without the need of any tools.
I propose that we replace her old and ancient education system, her culture. For if the Indians think that all that is foreign and English is good and greater than their own, and they will become what we want them, a truly dominated nation.
And how did the English accomplish this task? How did they convince the Indians to abandon the ancient path of Sanatana Dharma, of a godly life? Of course, the British employed means that they have already found to be very effective over time, like concentration camps, cruel genocides, and other similar tactics. The parties who organized all this are not held responsible till date, so that they organize more, of course. Currently, there is something like this going on for years in Africa, but it is very much under the radar. And even when it does get some news coverage, that is done in a very misleading light, as if some bad local people are killing some people all far away Africa. Of course, we have nothing to do with that. Yeah, better I put on the TV and start watching football. And these things from Africa, they're just depressing. I don't want to know more about this. And so, after destroying and plundering as much as they could and killing as many as they could, the British went to the next step, replacement of the history and the education. They said India doesn't have any historic records of her own, and that's why they felt the need to give it a history. There was no need of research or things like that. The history was already ready. And when they were fabricating the newly written history of India, it was very easy for them to find authoritatively looking quotes.
Because in those times, India meant a faraway, unknown place. That's why the travelers, centuries ago, called India places in America, places in Africa, places in China, in Persia, in the Middle East, even in nowadays India. All these were various Indias. So, when they were cooking up the new history of India, they could write pretty much anything they wished, and they would find the confirmation quote somewhere, very easily. For example, in this single map alone, one can see 3 Indias. Of course, all the quotes which were patched up together to provide the backbone for the newly fabricated Indian history were always accounts given by foreigners. Like, for example, the account of Alexander the Great, written by Aristotle himself. It sounds so legitimate. Let's look at some of the details about the weather mentioned in those accounts.
About the weather of India, it was, according to his words, 6 months summer and 6 months winter. And what kind of winter? 30 men drowned in the snow. They couldn't bury them because they fell so deep inside the snow. Wow. According to Aristotle, some 500 troops out of the soldiers of Alexander the Great died in India due to very heavy snowfall. And then how does this account describe the people of India? They wear skins of seals. Of course, India does have a couple of high mountains where snowfall occurs, but if Alexander the Great was marching to it with an army, with an intent to conquer it, would he and could he teleport himself directly to the highest mountain peaks with the snow and the seals and miss out completely the normal parts of the country? All these stories with the seals and the extreme snowfall, this could be also a legitimate account of India, but the question is which India? It really doesn't seem to be the current India. In this newly fabricated history, of course, the Indians were presented as people believing in strange religious things, who didn't even know who they are until somebody from Europe, of course, came and found them to tell them who they are. Which is, of course, yet another lie. Here on the walls of an old Indian temple, we see a person with a typically European outfit and features. So apparently the Indians were connected with the Europeans. Well, maybe these were not the right Europeans from the point of view of those who came to murder and destroy. Here also the man on the right is depicted in a very different manner from the way the Indians depict themselves with the full set of jewelry and the hairstyle and so on. This man looks Roman top to bottom.
Mahamaya Maheshwara Shankara Girijapati Shankara Jata me Ganga, Jata me Ganga, Jata me Ganga, Trilochana Trisuladhara, Jata me Ganga, Trilochana Trisuladhara, Namo Kailashapati, Sativara Bhuvaneshwara, Shankara Girijapati Shankara. Shankara Girijapati.
Here we have an entire scene of foreigners, probably Africans, coming with a giraffe. They seem to be handing something, maybe gifts, to the Indian Maharaja on the elephant. And I say foreigners because the people around the giraffe, they're distinctly different from the Indians, who are always depicted with full set of jewelry and the typical Indian outfits. And by the way, transporting a live giraffe all the way from Africa is not that easy in terms of logistics. So in India, as everywhere else, we see the same picture. People were very well connected with the rest of the world. They were part of the one world culture, a culture which honored the gods and the principles of goodness. In the past, these bridges, cultural bridges between different types of people, different races, they were created to enrich those who were involved, to make their lives better. While nowadays the same idea of one world and brotherhood and everybody loves each other, all this is preached with the exactly opposite purpose. So the one world culture was something beneficial when it was used to spread the message of the benevolent gods, our creators. But when the same concept is used to expand and strengthen the cobweb of evil, well, think twice before enthusiastically voting for that.
Jata me Ganga, Jata me Ganga, Jata me Ganga, Trilochana Trisuladhara, Jata me Ganga, Trilochana Trisuladhara, Namo Kailashapati, Sativara Bhuvaneshwara, Shankara Girijapati Shankara.
So, as we saw in our episode about Japan, even the modern Hindu pundits, Sanatadhamma pundits, started becoming aware that actually their rishis, the sages, their original teachers, they came from the North Pole, which is exactly the place where Hyperborea used to be. They didn't decide that just by listening to beautiful abstract Vedic poetry. There was a much more exact science behind it.
A branch of the Vedas is called Jyotish Shastra, and it deals mainly with astrology, but this astrology is backed up by amazingly precise, good knowledge of astronomy. So to make the long story short, They tried to discover places based on records of how the stars were located at a given moment. Also, they would know the time because the time would be recorded along with the stars. For example, this is a traditional kundali, or what we in the West call astrological chart, somebody's birth chart. So always in this kundali, they need to calculate very precisely the exact position of all planets. But when they tried to determine where exactly in India was a given historic thing taking place, they found out that it's not even in India. And then they started looking for a place at which the given kundali would have been correct for the time for which it has been made. They did find such a place, but it turned out it's not even in India. And what is that place? It's the North Pole. Exactly the location of Hyperborea. So during the history of the Earth, various groups were coming to educate the simple cavemen, to mingle with them, to intermarry them, to teach them technology, religion. But in the relatively recent times, it seems that those who were doing it with good intentions were the Hyperboreans. Did they do it directly themselves, or was it people who lived in the now cold areas of Europe and Siberia? Were they spreading the knowledge which they received from the Hyperboreans? We don't know exactly yet, but the truth seems to be coming out lately. Not only the Indians discovered the Hyperborean connection, but also there is something going on in Russia, something which may end up playing the leading role in the upcoming big events on Earth, and yet there is no news coverage of it currently. Parasitic mass media will waste your time with all kinds of rumors, gossips, or straightforward lies about Putin, mostly. But they don't want you to know that many simple Russians lately are becoming aware of the Vedic roots of their Slavic culture. Yes, exactly, Vedic. And this is how they call it as well, even in their own language. The keywords are Vedicheskaya Rus, or Slavianskie Vedai, means Slavic Vedas. Since we were always told to connect the Vedic literature with India only, somebody may get confused and think that the Russians are looking for connections with India, and that's why they have adopted the term or something like that. But this is not so. There were Slavic Vedas. People just rediscovered them. They are called Vedas as well, even in our own Slavic languages. The verb Veda, Vedi, means to know. It is still in use in some Slavic languages, and even those that don't use it are aware still. If they hear, it will sound to them like an archaic word, but they will understand it. Not only the name of the literature is the same, the message is also the same, left by what in India is called the Adityas, the advanced beings of goodness, or the gods of goodness. Scripts which were used in very old times in all these Nordic regions of Europe and also in Siberia, they are very similar to the Devanagari script, which is the main script used for writing down the Indian Vedic literature. So what is this big change in Russia which the monster big mainstream media doesn't want to tell you much about? The thing is that too many Russians recently simply started abandoning the parasitic paradigm, and they simply leave its grip. they go to live in the wild. And this is not just a way for some people to avoid the cobweb of evil. This is the only way to do it. If you continue sitting at home and while having the TV on, while drinking alcohol, you swear loud out of hatred for the banksters and all your other slave masters, you will never get out of the cobweb. Indeed, your hatred is what it feeds off. It is exactly your feelings of anger, desperation, and helplessness which provide the fuel for this cobweb. This is an incomplete map of settlements, entire settlements of people who have decided to leave the cobweb. The first wave were really the type of people which most people would describe as New Age type folks. But then the second wave, which is much bigger and much more powerful, are usually people with relatively high positions in society, people with higher education, people that would be described as intellectuals. They decided, why should I stay in the city and get sprayed with poison trails and live in a pollution and noise amongst hyena-like people, if I can go and live in one of these communities the way my forefathers did. I think the English term for this type of settlements is eco-settlements, but in Russia they call them родовые поселения, which means clan settlements. So of course these people came straight out from the cobweb. They didn't even know much how was it exactly that their forefathers lived in harmony with nature. You see, this one didn't even manage to pack the right type of trousers. But as Edgar Cayce told us, it will take some time, but they will learn. So here he says, it will take years for it to be crystallized, but out of Russia comes again the hope of the world. And yet another Edgar Cayce quote confirming the same. And he is not the only proven prophet who said that the first sprouts of the paradigm of love and peace will appear in Russia, but amongst the common people. This should not be confused with Putin or any other centralized organization. The government of Russia is almost as corrupt and rotten as that of the United States of America or the United States of Europe. Yes, one could say that the mass media in Russia is slightly more truthful than the rest of the world, but the overall situation is not much different. Same poisons sprayed from the skies and the rest of the package. So this is a typical house of one of these settlements in Russia, родовые поселения. Not everybody can afford a better looking house straight away, but that's not important for them. At this point, the people who go there understand that the most important for them is freedom to start with, and then the full process of reuniting again with nature. Although at this point, some people living in the woods in so-called clan settlements can barely look like something that could shake the parasitic cobweb, but it seems eventually they will. Listen again to an Edgar Cayce quote.
Unless there is interference from what may be called by many the supernatural forces and influences that are active in the affairs of nations and peoples, the whole world, as it were, will be set on fire by the militaristic groups and those that are for power and expansion in such associations.
Germany is the only other place in the world, at least that I'm aware of, where such communities, off-cobweb communities, started appearing in such a great concentration as Russia. That is why the German government took drastic measures to rise the crime levels. That was accomplished through the medium of various governmental programs and initiatives. And as usual, they had very humanitarian sounding names. And Scandinavia, up until a couple of decades ago, when only local Scandinavian people used to live there, the crime rates were extremely low, much lower than anywhere else in the world. Just the nature of the people over there was like that. And where have we reached now, after a couple of decades of hard governmental work on lowering the sum total of the human consciousness there? We have war zones there, no-go zones. Even policemen avoid entering those zones. Immediately they are attacked with fire, with stones. Their cars get burned down. They need bulletproof vests, vehicles, special equipment. And how could the most peaceful people on earth be reduced to such a miserable conditions in just a couple of decades? Well, with the various government-organized programs, of course, and all of them under the slogan of loving everybody, especially in an international way. So lately I was reading the records of the regressions of Anton Aksenov, and especially the topic of the New Age, which he calls the new space. According to the information which he obtained from various people independently, people in trance, I mean, this new space is kind of a new layer of reality which was initially created by this very same race, the Hyperboreans, or the people who learned from them. Anybody who has a human body, every soul which wears a human body currently, can get plugged in to this new reality gradually. Of course, this would be kind of predetermined already at the point when the soul makes the plan for its future incarnation. And the souls who have decided to take this path and plug into this new layer, initially in them this would manifest as a strong urge, call from inside to reconnect with nature and start learning from it. According to the channeled information, although the Hyperboreans lived on Earth in what we would classify as historic times, they created the new space for the current historic moment, because, being advanced as they were, they, or maybe at least some of their shamans, or even maybe beings from the astral realm, who are responsible for overseeing the flow of historic events on Earth, as they
tape ran out. It's an 8-track. Sorry about that. Is everybody still out there? Good. Say, we'd go hang out at Dan's house. You want to go hang out at Dan's for a little while? See if I can get better at this. You ready? Let's go to Dan's. Here we go. You ready? Doesn't seem to be anybody here. They must be going out to eat or something. What do y'all think? Oh, there's Dan right there. Shit. Oh, he doesn't see me now. Mm-hmm. That's right. It's not so cold in here tonight. Turn it off. I'm sorry about that.
So Obama's talking about all of this with the global warming and that, and a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax. I mean, it's a money-making industry, okay? It's a hoax.
And I believe strongly in clean water and clean air. But I don't believe that what they say, I think it's a big scam for a lot of people to make a lot of money.
Are you the pilot?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay, can I put you on camera? Do you mind? Hold on, just like that. Hey, do you know anything about chemtrails?
No. Okay, yeah. Just a question to you. Hello.
Hi.
Do you speak English?
Sure, what do you need?
Okay, just a question. Do you know what is a chemtrail?
The what?
A chemtrail.
I do know what a chemtrail is.
Yeah.
About the chemtrail generator.
Oh.
Let's make sure that thing is working. We're going to go check this out. 3.3. Oh, look at that. They're working. They're working. You can see the chemtrails coming out of the engines here. Look at that.
Ich bin Luft- und Raumfahrttechniker und habe Flugzeuge repariert und so weiter. Ich möchte euch jetzt mal ganz kurz erzählen, was ich gemacht habe.
Skies are actually overcast, so we can't see the geoengineering or the chemtrailing that's taking place. It's going on all over the country, all over the world, and people everywhere. There is an epidemic of people simply coughing. How many people do you know?
Look at this. Look at this. I mean, what the f is wrong with everyone? Can't you see this? Can't anyone see this in the sky?
It's a lot of WestJet planes flying over top of the
place I'm visiting here in Calgary. These are the people who are behind the chemtrails here.
Turn around. Come on, watch. What? Yeah.
What they found out was it started interfering with the ionosphere. And when they found that out, it became an experiment. And it's been an experiment for a multitude of weaponry ever since.
You mentioned earlier that you're a pilot.
Yeah.
Talk about chemtrails. We hear a lot about that. What are those, and are they for real?
Well, when you look into that and ask questions, they say, oh yeah, contrails. No, contrails.
I'm dying to take a picture of my neighbor. You get it. So chemtrail gen. I'm doing a video. Chemtrail generators are on, and yeah, there it is. Look, you can see them. Oh, hey, that's awesome. It's working.
Aircraft making a condensation trail is very similar in many ways to when you go outside on a cold day and exhale. You create a condensation trail. That little cloud is a condensation trail. Now, if you take a 2-mile walk on...
Do you know what they are?
I've heard of them. I don't know what they are.
Okay.
I've heard of it. I don't know what they are.
You don't know what it is.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Yep. Okay.
Goodbye. Thank you.
And is it true?
Well, there's a big debate.
Yeah.
Are you filming me?
Maybe. Okay. No,
I want to go on record with that.
Okay. No, but do you believe it? I don't know.
If you take a 2-mile walk on a cold day and you can turn around and you can see your condensation trail tracking all the way back for 2 miles. That's how crazy it is to think that what we're looking in the sky is actually condensation trails.
Ich habe auf dem militärischen Sonderflughafen Oberpfaffenhofen in Zusammenarbeit mit dem Deutschen Luft- und Raumfahrtzentrum ein Flugzeug mit einer Sprüheinrichtung ausgestattet, was an uns hat.
Mate, I don't get it. I just don't get it. It's summertime. Our sky, we don't see blue skies anymore. People walking down the street, looking at their phones, looking at anything else but the sky.
This is the wine spit test, where you rinse your mouth out, and then you take grape juice and you hold it in your mouth and you spit it out into a petri dish. Now watch, the stuff is alive. Watch what happens.
It is endless, the capabilities of what HARP is. It is an experiment in the process. It is endless. I say endless what HARP can do.
So yeah, contrails. No, contrails are behind a jet. If you see a jet flying very high, the stripe, the condensed stripe behind it. But you see a jet airplane going, it's not only one, they have 4 condensed stripes behind them.
As you can see, I was a airline pilot. What we're seeing now, and I first could not believe it, and I started looking at the skies, and these are not normal. They're not natural. There's something going on. I don't know who it is or why they're doing it. All I can testify is it's not natural and it's not normal.
So you see the contrails that don't dissipate?
The ones that I see generally just...
You don't see the long lingering ones?
Yeah, I see those.
Do they make you sign a waiver that you're not allowed to talk about what goes on in the sky? What?
No, not at all.
Yeah, but because I saw a lot of videos on the internet, and it really looks believable.
Well, it's arguable both ways, I think.
Yeah?
Depends on which side you're on, but...
Yeah.
Force them in, just a little. Watch. Look. Look what it does.
Now you can film it up close.
I am.
There's a huge amount of aluminum being found because these sprays have aluminum, strontium, barium, manganese, and there's a lot of argument that aluminum is very common to be found, but aluminum is only common in a bonded form. It's not common in a free form.
Telling them that we have to lay a pattern up there to prevent sun energy from hitting Earth. And what they're doing in there, it's now pretty much determined. They're putting in the aluminum, barium, and strontium.
Ausgestattet, was an unserem Himmel giftige Substanzen versprüht. Als ich mit den Beweisen dafür, den Fotos und allem drum und dran.
Wow, warfare.
Biological warfare, my friends. This is the stuff they're spraying
Parasites.
on us. These people are out to murder everyone on Earth. These people have sold their soul to the devil.
They have only
surface of what HAARP is capable of. What are they using it for? All 24 stations. Oh, it's more than 24 stations. It's 244 stations now.
Now you take these chemicals and run them through a PubMed literature search in respect to human health. You will find more than 3,000 papers. Aluminum alone. I mean, aluminum Alzheimer's, right? Mental. I mean, there's no question about it.
So sieht's aus. Ich stelle mich jedem Untersuchungsausschuss zur Verfügung. Ist 3 Tage später mein Boss zu mir nach Hause gekommen und hat gesagt, ich muss dich entlassen. Da werden von ganz oben große Räder gedreht, die ich nicht mehr halten kann. Ich kriege keinen Job mehr in der Luftfahrt.
Suddenly, this stuff what they're laying out there, it comes down in rain. If it falls on crops, it kills the crops. It's like they have big blisters on any one of the crops, vegetables or things like that. Organic crops, totally destroyed. Can't even use them.
All right. Let me turn my camera on. I will not be on tomorrow or the next day. Oh, about the chemtrails. Now, next time you're talking to a liberal that believes in global warming, say, you know that they are geoengineering. Don't say chemtrail. Just say you know that they are geoengineering the skies, trying to reflect the sun's rays back out into space because of global warming. And they'll say, yes. They'll admit that they are spraying the skies to reflect the sun's rays back out into space. See, this is where you catch them. Because when they agree that that's what they're doing, then you say, well, the problem is it was just a theory. Nobody ever created a plan or said that what they're doing up there. That's just what they theorized and told people like the CIA that they could do to reverse global warming. But they never told the public that they were doing anything, so how do you know? You understand? The theories developed by the global warming theorist, now, it might be warming up. I don't fucking know. I can't trust anything that they tell me. I guess if I looked at snow cover, I would say it's getting colder in some places. It's getting hotter in other places. The water is rising in some places. It's lowering in other places. Like, you know, we could have another, you know, I mean, we got cities underwater right now. They say there's more cities underwater than there are above water. So scratch your head on that one. They say that there's more shit under the water, more cities of where people lived than we'll ever find above water today. So take it for what it's worth. Everybody's got an damn asshole and an opinion. So get them to admit to chemtrails just under a different premise. You can start going from there. Anyway, I'm going to get off of here. It's 11 o'clock and I got things I want to do, and I just want to sit down and eat something too because I'm hungry. But y'all have a good night, and I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. If you're catching this tomorrow or whatever, Merry Christmas. I hope that you get everything that you deserve to get for Christmas. What do you think that you deserve for Christmas? Well, I think Rob's ducks. They could use a Christmas present. Like, you know, like a off-color Christmas card. So everybody needs to send his ducks a Christmas card. Like, you know, like Spanky and the Gang Christmas card for the ducks. Yes, but Merry Christmas to everybody. I appreciate everybody showing up out there that showed up tonight. Mighty cool of you. Thanks for hanging out. Again, I think we have completed the mission of being the worst show on YouTube. Can I get a big thumbs down? Hell yeah, bitches. This is the worst freaking show on YouTube. Don't y'all forget it. I got awards for this shit. Y'all have a good night. Merry Christmas.